On this episode, I sit down with three guys that actually did what a lot of guys say they should have done. Their names are Eddie, Logan, and Trey, and they were all walk-ons at the University of Texas. So of course, we're going to discuss their time there, including beating OU, the last game against A&M at the time, and that you can't lose to Kansas. But those are just the moments that created a brotherhood-like friendship, thick skin, and life lessons that transcend football. We also talk about the sap suckas that don't know what the foot chipotle is. Oh, sucky now. Let's jump in. Hey everybody, welcome to a special episode of a Moderately Good podcast. Y'all should be really excited because I'm really excited. We're gonna learn a lot of stuff tonight. I feel like this is a really good night to learn stuff. Before I get started, doing those regular old shout outs. Just hang in, we'll be there in a second. Joe Andrade Media, he's the guy that does all my media for me. So not the videos you made me see in the garage being filmed, but all my cool pictures and stuff and everything is on Instagram. It's because of him. Jason, he's at Wishpocket on Instagram. He is my audio engineer extraordinaire. And if you have like a up and coming rock band or I don't know, a Judas bar mitzvah that you need like really good sound for, or you're recording, that would be, call Jason, Wishpocket on Instagram. My guy, Jaron, No Names Originals. He does, custom bleach clothing and artwork, support local artists in North Carolina because everybody, it's local in this weird way of our world. Anyways, Go Bubble app, my guy Mo, it is the car wash service to your home. So they bring the car wash to you. And if you use the promo code Go Moderately, you get some sort of discount. Oh, and, if you think about it, or if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot and doesn't probably hurt you at all. Or if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, follow me. Because also, again, you just get alerts about cool shit that's going to happen tonight. So my guy, Logan, that has been on my podcast before. He is a gentleman over to your right. Say hi, Logan.
Hi, Logan.
How you been, dude?
I've been good. I've been chilling.
Yeah. Are you stoked to do this?
No, I'm really excited to get back with Trey and talk to Eddie.
When was the last time you saw Trey?
I guess I saw you at the first game this year.
Yes.
Against Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah. And then my other guest in studio is Trey. Say what's up, Trey.
What's up, Trey?
Yeah. And Trey drove all the way in from Houston, so I appreciate that. Right. And y'all guys know each other because y'all were both walk-ons at UT. Right?
Correct.
Is that
we walked on.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll get into that. And then via satellite of our network, we have their good friend, Eddie, who is going to present Eddie.
I will present Eddie.
Okay. So Eddie is hanging out in a space helmet in there. Say, yeah, you can go ahead and flip it up. Yeah. Say, what's up, Eddie?
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's going on, man? So, and Eddie, where are you at right now?
I'm in Wichita Falls, Texas.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Center of the universe.
I could see why you wanted to call in and not come to Austin. You know what I mean? That's very obvious. So.
It's a tough place to leave.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get it. And all three of y'all gentlemen know each other from walking on UT. This is correct?
From the football.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Yeah. Eddie, let's start with you. So first impression of Logan and then first impression of Trey.
Yeah. As I recall, I'm going to start reverse. My first impression of Trey was meathead. I mean, the guy loved to lift weights, and he loved to let us know he loved to lift weights. I loved it, and he ended up becoming a gentle man that I found out, but on the outside he was hard as diamonds. As far as Logan is just a guy that when you first meet him, I kind of joked with him And then real quickly, I saw how witty he was, and I was like, I need to like kind of keep my mouth shut around him because
Baby Einstein.
every syllable I give is like ammo for him to
say that you don't know what you're doing.
Like, ever comes.
Yeah, I get that.
Logan's quick with it.
Trey, your first impression of Eddie and Logan?
So first impression of Eddie, we walked on together, but I learned from some other guys that Eddie had been on the team before. And
Wait, okay. When you walked on, how long had he been a walk on before?
When was that, Eddie?
That was so. I came on in 2010.
So you walked on in 2010.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got there in fall of 2011.
Okay.
And so Eddie, one of the first memories, and these guys know exactly what I'm talking about, but Eddie liked to be late to workouts.
He didn't like it, but it happened.
So I was like, that's, that part is...
That does not sit well with you, I'm assuming.
Not great.
Yeah.
But Eddie, like, you can't not like Eddie. You could be just fuming pissed at Eddie, and then he would say one thing, and you're like, damn it, all right, that's pretty funny. Okay, but stop being late. And then Logan actually was on the team for a week longer than I was. He was in a different tryout group, and I had to wait on some paperwork. So I had to come in with another group. So Logan, when I got there, was like, hey, man, we're in meetings today. It was a Sunday. It was after, I believe, BYU.
BYU, yeah.
And he was like, hey, just do what I do and you'll be fine. So like, go here.
Logan said that?
Yeah. He was like, we're going to go into this room and then we're going to split up and you'll go down here and I'll be over here. But like, I'll catch you up more later. So Logan was kind of my inside man in that 1 week.
What made you want to do that for Trey so immediately?
Oh, I was talking out of my ass the whole time, for the record. I've been there a week.
I totally believe that. But like you picked him to help, right?
Oh, just because, so like my group had kind of like come in, all with me, and then Trey was with a smaller group that came in later. So I kind of felt like, okay, he's in our class. Let me, kind of help him through, help him with what I know so far.
Guy seems kind of dumb, communicates mostly in grunts. I need to help him out. He's a big meathead, which is what I heard from Eddie. So I need to guide him.
Eddie, you hit the nail on the head as far as like the lifting weights. Like Trey came in like, what's up? I move weight, and that's what I'm here to do.
I'm here to move weight. Logan, what was your first impression of these two guys?
My first impression of Trey was, I just remember like coming up to him. We were taking a knee on the side during practice, which happened a lot. And like I came up to him and like I was like, memes were still new then. And like I talked to Trey, I was like, hey, like I'm kind of into memes. Like I brought that up. I was like, do you know what these are? And Trey just like starts, it was like opening up a faucet. Trey just goes. He starts just like laying out all this stuff. So like we were just talking about the same memes, like cracking jokes about that. So I was like, okay, like this guy's like he's kind of like with it as far as like our sense of humor. Like and once again, he literally like communicates in movie quotes, which is how I communicated. So we were just kind of like in line talking like that the whole time. So that was my first impression of Trey. With Eddie was weird because like Eddie came in after me, but everyone already knew Eddie and everyone already liked Eddie.
Because he'd already been there before?
Yeah. And also, Eddie's like, you can't help but like Eddie whenever you first meet Eddie. And so I couldn't figure out. I was like, did Eddie just win these people over in like 3 hours? Like I've been here a fucking week. Like what happened? Yeah. He knew everyone, like I remember like Emmanuel Acho like came up and like said what's up to him and stuff. I was like, what is going on? Like,
yeah, that was like the president's endorsement when we walked on. It was like, he knows Manny Acho.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
This is kind of a weird question, but it just kind of, we can just, if there's nothing there, it's fine. But was there any level of being like starstruck around some of those guys that ended up like, like going to the pros and stuff? Like, was there a little bit of like, wow, like, and you say, like you said, it's a presidential endorsement if Acho was like to do that. So like, obviously you respected him, right? So was there like guys that were just kind of like, I don't know, bigger than life or anything?
No one like, for me, like not anyone that was on the team at the time that we came on. But like, you'd be in the weight room and like Colt McCoy would come in. Like that's when I was starstruck. Like I didn't even go over and talk to him. I was so nervous. For me, it was one of the older guys, like
he
the
seems
NFL
like a really nice
established guys.
guy, though. Like,
Oh, he is.
Super nice guy.
Yeah, he is. But I'm just like, everyone like goes and talks to him. He's trying to work out. Like, I'm not going to go just like, tap him on the shoulder. And
for me, it was, I definitely was by certain guys just because, a year prior I'd been in high school watching these guys on TV.
Right.
But there was this balance of like, hey, I'm here too. Like, I belong here. I'm, obviously not on those guys' level, but they're my teammates in a certain sense, even though I'm a walk-on that's been here for 6 days. So I was like, don't act like a tourist, right. act like you belong and you'll figure it out.
Hey, Eddie, really quick. So explain how you ended up on the team twice.
Yeah.
Oh, 3 times?
Was it 3?
Yeah, grades were a big helper in that, the whole.
Like, you mean you kept flunking and then you kept passing and then you come back when you pass?
Yeah, it's like I would kind of let my grades slip and they'd be like, hey, you're off till you get good grades. And then I would get good grades and like, oh yeah, you can come back. And then I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm back, but I'm not ready anymore. And then they'd be like, hey.
I just feel like
a love-hate relationship.
Well, I just feel like that,
With
like
grades.
I mean, man, like you would just think and have to do that over and over again. Just at some point, you just be like, nah, fuck it. But like, there must have been something that you like. What was it for you that like made you want to keep coming back?
Man, I was just so my dad played football at UT.
Okay.
And it'd been my dream my whole life to play there. And so I actually got the blessing to be able to go play at Texas State. Is what I was going to go walk on there. And then I went in, talked to some coaches when I got accepted to UT, kind of weaseled my way in, and then got told I could walk on at Texas. And I was like, I have to take this opportunity. And then, so I did. That's when I met like a bunch of guys like Jackson Jeffcoat, Emmanuel Acho, Sam Acho, a bunch of those guys I got close with that freshman year. Hung out with them. And then my grades, my first semester, I flunked the biology class. And then that was the only class I flunked because I didn't know you could do a thing called Q drop. Didn't know that existed at the time. So I wish I would have, but I didn't know. So that was the only class I ever flunked. And then they were like, hey, you have to get better grades. So then the next semester I got like a 3.5 and they're like, okay, you can come back. Yeah. So that's kind of how that worked. And then whenever I came back, they said, you have to go through the same walk-on process as all the other guys, but we told you if you got your grade back, so you can come back on the team. And so I wasn't in great shape. So I'm sure to some people I didn't look like I should have made it, but they were kind of already like, we told you could come back. So you can come back.
We already told him he could. So
What would you tell your younger self that was like on the team? Like, what would you tell him like that he needs to know now? Like, and retrospective, like of being on the team, if you could tell him your younger self one thing that he needs to know about being on the team, what would you tell him? Anybody can go first.
I can go with this one. I think for me, like I would say it's kind of cliche, but to kind of just enjoy your time on the team more. I think I spent a lot of like my mental capacity trying to like define myself as like, oh, Logan Mills is, I studied engineering. I was like, Logan Mills is an engineer who also does football. And I kind of like, I want people to know that, I kind of had this thing. I was like, I want people to know I was smart. Like I'm here for education. Then I also do football. And sometimes that I realized that didn't let me totally like enjoy the experiences as much as I could. So just kind of like, just be like, hey, relax. It's all going to work out. Just enjoy your time with these guys.
But is that kind of like, in a weird way, like a metaphor for life? Like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah, pretty much. Like that's a concept.
I mean, it's very cliche, but I'm just saying, like it's those life lessons. It's your experiences that teach you what you know, right? Like how you see the world is from your experiences, and everybody's kind of different. So, Trey, what about you?
I would kind of echo that. I also was someone that at times I got frustrated because football wasn't going how I wanted it to go.
Were you good at football in high school?
I was good at football in high school. I was like a pretty good high school football player. But when you get to college, it's such a different level. It's almost like to the level of being a different sport because the guys you're going against.
What was the first day you realized that you were in a different sport?
I think just sitting through meetings, which was one of my biggest opportunities as a player. And when I would get frustrated with like, I feel like I'm not progressing the way that I want to. I don't know if I'm gonna work my way into the rotation. A lot of that came down to you hear about these guys that are students of the game, and that wasn't me. In high school, I didn't really learn how to watch film and prepare.
Does anybody watch film in high school? Did you watch film in high school?
We'd break down film like
Yeah, we
on the
did.
Saturday afterwards.
once a week.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Like I feel like my school. Okay, so I went to a high school of like 500 people.
Okay.
Right? There was 82 people in my graduating class. Right. We didn't even throw the fucking football. Like
Run
it was
the wishbone.
It was a lot of wishbone. It was a lot of like really short passes. Like we didn't have a field goal kicker. Like we just went for 2 every fucking time.
Hell yeah.
But it was one of those like it was because like we didn't have anybody that could do those things. And you're talking about like breaking down film,
Dude,
Like you know what I mean? There was
what
no way we were breaking down film.
What I didn't realize was that, hey, we watch every fucking snap of every practice,
Yeah.
and you get critiqued on every move you've ever made, and it will be discussed
Why did
in
you
a
come
group.
back for this, Eddie? Why?
So here's one thing that I like. I think my gratitude immensified and magnified in one film session, because I remember my favorite coach. If any coaches ever hear this, sorry, suck it. Coach T-Rob was my favorite coach. ever.
T-Rob.
Oh man, love me some T-Rob.
He was the best. We were sitting there, and I had missed a block in practice, and the quarterback got, quote unquote sacked. And I'm sitting there, and T-Rob starts yelling at me. And I remember thinking, like I was pissed in the moment because I missed the block. And then I thought, there are literally millions, not thousands, like millions of kids in elementary, junior, and high school that would die to be sitting in the running back room being yelled at by a coach. And I was like, and I'm actually here. I was like, and I don't deserve to be here. And there's so many people that are better athletes than me, but somehow I'm sitting in this chair and I'm getting yelled at.
Mm-hmm.
And I vividly remember that moment that I was like, oh, I can take this yelling, because like there's so many people that would, one, rather be here, or one, there's so many people that would want to be here, and two, there's so many people that deserve to be here more than me, but somehow I'm sitting here. So that, in that film, speaking of film, in that film session, that's when like my mindset changed a lot about.
What's your Eddie? What's your favorite T-Rob story?
My favorite T-Rob story. Man, one. Y'all could probably think as many as I can. My brain's not working.
My brain goes straight to him standing up for you to Coach Snow. Like that's my first thought.
Yeah, he almost fought Coach Snow, and Tubbs said that he literally had to grab him and pull him out of the room.
Oh, I don't know if I heard that one.
Oh yeah.
Hey, refresh all of our memories.
Yeah, so
and mine, because I don't have it.
So apparently, Snow.
For context, should we explain who Coach Snow was?
Sure.
Coach Snow was like how would you describe it? He was like a player relations guy. Like we called him coach, but he was like the facilitator. He would coordinate. Like he'd come out at the end of practice and tell us, hey guys, these guys need to go do this. These guys are going to media.
These guys have drug tests. These guys are doing this.
So, whatever, got a report for
like a handler
study.
almost?
Basically, yeah. Yeah. That was like player relations was that department.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much I had been on and off the team because of grades. Because unlike, if I could go back and tell my younger self something, it'd be, I had so much fun in college, but I had too much fun in college. I didn't pay attention in grades.
You should have hung out with
I
Logan more.
I wasn't trying to get a master's degree, and I was just getting a degree. And so that's where my problem was right there. That's what I told my younger self. But because of that, I was on and off the team. And Coach Snow, because of grades, was trying to say, just kick him off the team for good. And my coach T-Rob pretty much stood up and was like, that's my running back. And like stood up and apparently was like looking like he was going to get physical. And another coach like grabbed him and they pulled him out of the room. But it made me feel good having the coach that like cares for me that much.
T-Rob was a big dude too, so like if it looked like he was gonna get physical with somebody, like cause for concern for that person.
What's your favorite
I
T-Rob
watched him
story?
rip.
Oh, go ahead.
I watched him rip the helmet off of one of the young running backs who gave him lip. Chin strap buckled, comes up to him. T-Rob grabbed his face mask and rips it off his head and slams it down and was like, "Hit me if you're gonna hit me."
God damn.
That tracks. He had hands like cast iron frying pans. Like he would.
Yeah.
Wouldn't he do
grab
like
your
rip
hand.
stuff with like handshake?
Yeah. He'd grab your
Yeah, he
hand
would
and
always
like
handshake.
just to mess with you. He would just squeeze the shit out of your hand, like harder than that's ever happened to me before or since.
Is that your favorite T-Rob story?
No, my favorite T-Rob story is we were in winter conditioning. You used to go through this thing called county fair, and it was like a series of drills in the bubble. So we'd get there, and you had to be on the field at 5 a.m. And it was in like February, so it's in the low 30s, upper 20s in Austin.
What is inside
And-
the tent?
Oh,
The bubble.
Yeah, what
the
is
indoor
inside?
practice
Is it
facility.
like 80 inside the bubble? Like, is it normal temperatures or is it?
Oh,
Yeah.
It's like normal.
It's
there.
controlled.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But
okay.
you got to walk over there through the cold.
Okay, fair.
So we get there, and his drill was like a bag station, and so you had to chop your feet over the bag and then go through it. And T-Rob didn't cuss so he'd say foot instead of saying fuck, or he would he'd call you a sap sucker or something like that. Like,
sucker.
I can't even remember some of his best ones, but like he didn't cuss. And so we were going through a drill and somebody messed up, and I'm in the back of the line and I went, foot, kind of just joking. And he goes, Gonzalez, give me 30 up downs. So I was like, all right, whatever. So I go and I start doing my up downs, and then my turn in line comes up and he's like, "What are you doing? Don't miss your turn. Get your ass over here. What are you doing?" Or he didn't say ass, but he said, "Get over here." And so I go through the drill, and then I'm okay. Am I done? And he's like, "Get back to the up downs." So I start doing up downs again, and so I realize like I still have to go in the drill. So instead of getting to stand there and wait my turn, I have to do up downs.
Right.
So I do 30, and I'm sucking wind. I'm just torched, and I was like, "All right, that's 30, coach." And he's like, "All right, give me 30 more." So I'm at this point, like in county fair, you really like find out who you are as a person. Like you get so tired that you're like, you really test your mental fortitude. So we got to the end of that, and I was pissed. I was so upset. And I was talking about it in the locker room after, and he's kind of passing through. And T-Rob's one of those guys, like, you just can't be mad at Coach T-Rob. He's just such a good guy, and he really cares about his players. And he's passing through, and I made mention of it right as he's passing by, and he just kind of laughs and looks over. I was like, "Coach, what was that all about?" And he goes, "Oh, that's just because I like you."
Oh, T-Rob.
So that's
He's
my
like-
favorite.
What about you, Logan?
Oh, go ahead, Eddie.
No. You might be saying the story I'm about to
No,
say.
I really don't have any. Like, my thing was going to be that I just loved, like, I don't have a story. I just have an attribute. The fact that he didn't cuss. It was always foot, sap sucker. Because you'd be like, I didn't interact with him much. I was on defense. I would just hear stories about him in the film room and stuff like that. Or I would hear him just yell across practice, sap sucker, foot. And so he was kind of this caricature in my head. So I didn't have any like personal stories with him. I would just hear stuff from the running backs. So I don't know, Eddie, if you got a story, share
What
it.
are some of the better sayings, Eddie? Because I know we only have two. I know there's better ones.
If you do something good, he goes, "Ooh, sookie now." Or he'll go, "Ooh, cooking with Crisco now." We had a different mile per hour per play, and like you had to get it right, or you know how he made Trey do 60 up down just because he liked them. Like if you got the mile per hour wrong, you're doing push-ups in the film room. So he'd go, "Boosie, how fast do you go on this play?" And it's 122 miles an hour was the right answer. If you say anything else was wrong, how fast do you go on this play? 98 miles an hour. It's pretty fun. And there's one play that he says it, and everybody goes, "You can't go fast enough."
That's
my
funny. I
favorite
hadn't
one
heard
is
that
Phil.
one.
Not to take too much time on him, but my favorite one was with De La Torres, who we were watching film, and when T-Rob wants to make a point, he will make what he's trying to teach you stick in your head forever, and I still remember forever. So we had a play, and De La was supposed to get the end, but he tried to pick up the linebacker. And so the coach goes, De La, we were doing film, and he kind of rewinds it, and he goes, De La, who do you have on this play? And he goes, I have the end. And he goes, well, it looks like you got the linebacker. He's like, yeah, I messed up. He's like, so who do you have? And he's like, oh, I got the D end. And he goes, okay, let's see what happens. And he hits play, and obviously the film shows him going for the linebacker. And he goes, De La, I thought you said you had the D end. He goes, I do have the D end. He goes, well, why'd you go for the linebacker? And he's like, it's just film. And he goes, I don't want excuses. He goes, why'd you go for the linebacker? And he's like, Coach, I got the D end. He's like, okay, you got the D end? He's like, yeah. And he goes, okay, let's see it again. And he rewinds it, and he hits play. And he goes, De-La, why'd you go for the linebacker? And he's like, Coach, it's film. And they start screaming. He's like, I don't want excuses. All right, let's run it again. He rewind it. He did that for like.
I can also see De La like not understanding that he's making a point. De La's like, I don't think he understands that like the film that it already happened.
Malcolm Brown when things would happen that were funny, he had his hoodie up and he'd pull his strings to where it just went like this. And he was just back there laughing with his hoodie up.
Oh man.
So Logan, Eddie, this county fair that Trey was referring to, do y'all have similar feelings about it?
Yeah, it's a man maker. Like it's just like.
So what's your county fair story?
My county fair story? Oh shoot.
Which one?
Yeah, I mean they're just countless. Honestly, they're just. I don't know. All of them end up with just a feeling of just like dying. Like you're just thinking, I just got to make it through the next rep and just get to the next drill, and then that drill is even worse than the last one, and you're just kind of rolling through. I can't think of any specific stories besides. Do you remember Coach Strong had us do competitions where he said he would like you'd show up that morning and he'd say, hey, you're going against this guy for every rep of every drill. It's a competition. Mm-hmm. You got to see who you beat. I remember going against Trey one time and it was like 50-50 all day. We just like gave it all we had and we were just pushing each other to the limit every time. But
yeah, they like to set us up in no-win scenarios. Like there was a rabbit drill where you had to run through these, I guess you'd call them like gates, but they would use them for receivers and different positions to like get low as you're going through a play. So you were chasing a guy who had like a 3-yard head start on you. And like if you didn't catch the guy you were chasing, you had to do up downs. And then if you got caught as the rabbit, as the guy getting chased, you had to do up downs. So it was a lot of like damned if you do, damned if you don't. And really like the whole thing was just designed to test you mentally. Because at the end of it, we would do like 10 perfect 10s. Or we would do quarter eagles.
What's a 10 perfect 10?
10 perfect 10 is like you all put your hand on the line, they blow the whistle, and you sprint 10 yards.
There's 3 groups. So it's like bigs, like O&D line, big skill, linebackers, running backs, and then skill guys. Okay. DBs, receivers.
So why is it called a 10 perfect 10?
Because you have to do 10 perfect one. Do you have to do 10 in a row?
10 perfect 10-yard sprints in a row.
What does that mean to be a perfect 10-yard sprint?
It was like hand behind the line. Like everyone started with their hand behind the line. Everybody sprinted 10 yards. And there was one other thing. I feel like there was one other thing. I think there was
a time for each group, right? Wasn't there a time for each group?
Yeah, it was something like that. But they would come along and like, Logan pulled up before the end.
Sometimes.
Yeah, there were some bullshit flags. Yeah. Like they would literally throw a flag and say like, oh, nope, he didn't finish. And so they're like, so we're back to 0. And so it would take forever.
Eddie didn't have his hand behind the line and they would just pick random people. And so one day you're supposed to run 10. One day we ran 72 of them. And it was just it was a no-win situation.
And once again, this is after the county fair drill. Yeah. Like we'd already been like doing circuit drills for like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Stations, I think, 7 or 8 stations.
Yeah.
And so it was it was mostly like it was conditioning, but it was also just designed to test your mental toughness and have guys step up and be leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets testy. Like I think we had like a couple like kind of fist fights
There was
that came
definitely
out
some
of that.
fights.
Just 'cause,
Among y'all's groups.
amongst the players, because like someone will keep fucking up,
Yeah.
and then the people start calling them out, and then they get defensive about being called out, and then you're sitting there, you're like, oh, is that leadership? Is that what the coach wants? Like, what's happening? And then
It's very like Lord of the Flies a little bit.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean?
very dog eat dog. Like if you don't like ship up or ship out, like there was no love lost. If they could be your best friend, and if somebody was hoeing you in a drill, it was like, hey dude, I love you, but I will stab you in the neck with a knife. Like you need to get it together.
So really quickly, Eddie, Logan, one of the nicest guys you've ever met.
don't lie, Eddie.
I would say Logan, Logan and Trey both have like, yes, I would say dude, like harder exteriors where like Logan kind of hides behind sometimes is like humor, but like he's actually like I feel like you try to have this like passivity of like, oh, I don't really care what's going on, but like you really care. I think he's a super good guy.
I'm working through it in therapy right now. Thanks, Eddie. Yeah.
Trey, would you say Logan's a pretty nice guy, right?
Logan has a very sarcastic exterior, but a very dickish interior that's work. No, I'm just kidding. No, Logan definitely is a guy that like pretty early on I kind of recognized because in high school I had taken a lot of like advanced classes, and to Logan's point earlier, he's an engineer who also played football. That was kind of how I was. Like I was in AP and had some college credit coming in.
Y'all
and I
can't
was
help
like,
y'all's guy Eddie over here. What are y'all doing? Jesus.
I also play football, so I recognized pretty early on that I was like, okay, like this guy gets it. And Logan has always been someone who cares very deeply about his friends, and like we just all relate to each other with sarcasm. Like if you were in our group and we didn't rip on you, we didn't like you. If we were just super nice from the jump, that's how you knew, like, oh yeah, they don't really know like how to feel about that guy.
Okay, so I have.
I'd say with Logan too, he's. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying with Logan too, he definitely knows when to turn it on and turn it off.
Okay,
I've noticed that with him.
You're going right where I want to go. Okay, so like I've obviously met Logan later, like after all this and stuff like that, and through our mutual friend Ren, and I mean. Logan, I mean, we've had coffee together. Like, this is one of the nicest, politest people I've ever met in my entire life. You know what I mean? But I feel like the things that y'all are talking about and to play football, that he would have to like kind of like flip a switch in like on the football field. Is that a true statement? So, I mean, I kind of want to hear maybe like just a time where like he just went like ape shit. Like that's what I'm kind of looking like where he wasn't polite and in control like on the football field. Like,
so this kind of underscores me and Eddie's point, and Logan's laughing because he knows the story I'm about to tell. But I personally can't recall a time Logan went ape shit, but there was a time where there was a fight at practice, which like. You borderline don't even count those as real fights because sometimes
what is it? What is it? Is it one happen in every practice?
Not every practice, but about once a week.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they're just bullshit.
Just a lot of shoving and fuck you, no fuck you, and
it's not really a fight.
Every once in a while, there's a punch, but like you're padded up and you're wearing helmets, so
yeah,
there's not a lot at stake.
It was a lot of posturing.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a fight, and some helmets had been left on the ground. And Logan was going around grabbing helmets so guys didn't like trip over them and get hurt. And a guy who you would never expect this from,
Cedric Flowers,
just comes out of nowhere and spears like 1980s WWF just spears Logan in the back.
You see on the film, like I'm over here, just like I see the fight happening, and I'm in the background. I'm like, oh, let me pick up this helmet and this helmet, and then all of a sudden you see like this bull come, and like it's literally like, yeah, like the like hands fly. He spears me straight in the back.
Logan looks like a bad guy that got shot in a Rambo movie, just like ah.
So I learned my lesson that day. You got to look out for number one.
And so, I mean, were you pissed?
I was more shocked from that because, like, I just remember hitting the ground and, like, I'm looking around like, what the fuck just happened? And by the time that happened, kind of like the fight had been like broken up and everything. And once again,
Did y'all talk about that afterwards?
I talked to Seth about it. Well, here's the thing: is like, we can say his name. Cedric Flowers, like the nicest guy I've ever met.
Super nice
sweetheart.
Did he think you were somebody else?
I just think he just saw red and he saw the back of my shoulder pads
or
orange, and then he just went for it. And I don't remember being that mad with him. Like I couldn't be that mad with him.
It was more just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I was just
did
confused.
That just happen?
But I mean, going back to your original question, like there is a flip switch. I got in fights too. Like during pass rush though, mostly.
Yeah.
So like we'd have like a pass rush drill, and like just during the summer, like it gets hot, gets testy. Like, you know, my move would be I'd get off the line quick. I was small, so like I couldn't use too much power, so I have to get off the line quick, and I would do a side scissors move, which is basically where you kind of like flash your hands in front, knock their hands out of the way. And if that didn't work, then I would throw my right hand up into their jaw, and I'd kind of like long arm them like that. And so I remember like against Taylor Doyle, like I did that to him, got up in his jaw, and then he starts mouthing off, punches me, I punch him, like we take it to the ground.
You with your helmets on?
Helmet stayed on the whole time, but you're like in the fight, you're on the ground, you're trying to like push the helmet off. That's kind of like the only thing you can do. Like you're trying to get the helmet off to hit someone. But that's I think that's like probably the most intense like flip switch I had. But yeah. I
remember at one point I was looking into every walk-on's eyes, just seeing who's going to be the one that punches me. After one of our coaches told me.
I remember that.
So as I was talking about earlier, Eddie was late a handful of times, and we had a strength coach. I won't say who it was, but he was like, man, you know, if that was me, I'd fight that guy. I'm not telling y'all to do that. I'm just saying if it was me, and if you want to be a dude on this team, someone needs to fight that dude. But I'm not telling you to do it, but do it.
And then he goes, I'm going to go ahead and turn this way. And he like turned around.
Yeah, like very dramatically, like, I'm just going to be looking over here. So we all like.
And all of them are standing around me.
Like, I grew up in the suburbs. Like, I went to a predominantly white school. Like, people didn't fight. So I'm just looking at them. I'm like, I think I'm supposed to fight you. I don't know how this goes. Like, do I just
it's like the first time you try to get a kiss. You're just like, am I supposed to put my hands up? Are we supposed to swing at each other, not like each other?
I don't know.
I like vividly remember. I was like shocked that my coach just said that.
Mm-hmm.
And I vividly remember like we were kind of up front, and there was weights behind me, and I saw like this 5-pound weight, and I was like, I'm going to grab this 5-pound weight. I'm going to swing it at whoever comes at me.
Wow.
Well, because like earlier in that, like, because you showed up late and we literally did up downs for like an hour and a half around you. Like you were in a circle.
Oh,
yeah.
Logan's told this story before
it started.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like one of the times we, I'll never forget this. There was one day we did 227 up downs. And then the next time somebody was late, we had weight vests on and did 175 up downs. And
just continuous. They were like, hey, the team's gonna work out the walk-on class with this guy. You're gonna do up downs for the whole workout, and that'll be your thing. So
that was like, we talk about that. That's a very famous story in our friend group. But realistically, that was like a week of our lives that happened. But it just like you don't forget stuff like that.
Yeah, you don't forget doing that many up downs.
No, the number is still burned into my head.
I won't even run I think those Spartan races, they make you do up downs if you don't complete the mission, whatever mission it is. I'm like, I'm not doing that shit. Like, I was like, I'm moving on to the next obstacle. Fuck you.
I love that after a while with like up downs. Like, go ahead, Eddie.
Did you tell him about the liar part?
No, we didn't get to that.
No, we haven't.
You got it, Eddie.
I don't even remember what led to that. Were we doing dumbbell bench?
No, we were doing up downs.
We were doing up downs around Eddie, like it was during that whole period.
That was that time. Yeah.
And Benny Wiley's across the way. You got it, Eddie.
I was doing up downs at that point too, because he said we were doing up downs, and our coach was across the weight room, and I like went down. Went up, we had to count as a team. So we went out, and I looked over like this, and I just happened to look over as he's like staring daggers at me, and we make eye contact. And then he just like starts walking like
He makes a beeline
super
across
fast
the weight
for me.
room.
Yeah, stepping over
And
benches,
he's not
like
tall, so
shoving
he had to take a lot of
starters.
steps.
Yeah, he gets over to me, and he goes, "Oh, Boosie!" And I go, "Yes, sir." And at this point in my mind, I was like, "I'm just gonna agree with whatever he says." He goes, "Oh, Boosie," he goes, "Are you looking at me so you can skip reps?" I go, "Yes, sir." He goes, "What?" He expected me to say no, so he goes, "Liar!" And then he like walked off, and I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm lying."
Okay, so the gentleman that we're referring to, we'll just call him BW. Is that fair?
That's
That's
Buffalo
fair.
Wild Wings.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just Eddie, like, I don't know, maybe just 1 minute on your just total impression of that alien of a man. I mean, he's like a robot, right? Like, is he a robot?
Yeah, I had the worst. He hated me. He called me the C word because I smashed my finger with some weights one time. I was
and he
doing
was like
flies with Robinson,
like
with,
shaking his hand out.
Ryan. Yeah, I was doing flies, and then I smashed my finger, and then when I put the weight down, I like shook my hand out, and he was like, "Oh, does that hurt?" And he's like, "Eddie over here is being a," and he like drops the C word. And I was like, "What is happening?"
But he'd
And he would
also
always,
in the same thing, he'd be like, "But I don't cuss." But then he'd be calling us C words and bitches.
Yeah.
What's your, Trey, what's
I
your,
asked him
go ahead, Eddie.
if he went to church one time, and you would have thought I said, "Hey, I slapped your mom." He was furious that I asked him.
Did you, I mean, was there any level, I mean, like, you knew he didn't like you. Was there any level of you just like kind of fucking with him?
No, because he was one of the coaches that had power to make me do anything he wanted.
Yeah, the strength coaches have a ton of power over like just your free time. Like you, honestly, you spend more time with your strength coach than your position coaches
As
by
a
far.
walk-on, like getting in good with the strength coaches, because they like in the same way that you have position coaches, there's different strength coaches that work out with different groups.
Mm-hmm.
So like getting in good with your strength coach was step one to getting on the field, because at the end of the game, say you're kicking the shit out of New Mexico State or whatever. Like if you showed up and worked really hard in the weight room and you were in good with your strength coach, they would be the ones like, okay, you're gonna run kickoff or whatever the case was.
Yeah.
So if you were just went in the weight room and just fucked around, they'd be like, no, get away from me. What are you doing?
Right.
So you like.
So when Moore got hired, I had a really good relationship with Moore.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked him a lot. He was a good guy.
Yeah, that was with Coach Strong's staff. Yeah, Patrick Moore came in.
Yeah.
Logan, did you ever get to go into a game?
Yeah, I went in for North Texas. I played some defensive snaps in there. I got some stats in the book. I got like a few tackles and a pressure.
Nice.
So there's proof I was there.
Yeah. Trey, did you get to go in a game?
Yeah, I got to go into a couple over couple of years.
Yeah, you played against like TCU. You did Kansas kickoff. What else?
I played against TCU having shotgunned a beer that morning. That's a fun story.
That is a fun story.
I played in that North Texas game after we got left in the weight room at halftime. That's another fun story.
Yes.
So I got my reps here and there.
All right. So okay. Well, Eddie, you.
I played in a kickoff in a bowl game.
Oh, what? Okay. A bowl game. Nice.
Was that Arkansas?
Arkansas.
Texas Bowl, baby.
The Texas Bowl against old Dan Skipper.
All right. So really quickly, and then we're going to get to Trey's stories. Really quickly, like just in, I don't know, 30 seconds, describe what that was like just to play in a college football game.
To play, I just remember like I'm sitting on the sideline and I'm kind of like scared shitless. I'm like, do I even want to go in? Like I'm fucking freaking out.
Yeah.
And then they finally call, but you're also like, I have to. Like that's the whole fucking reason I'm here, right? So they eventually send you out, and like once you just do that first play, and then you're like, okay, like I know what this is. I've been doing this. So I don't know, like you kind of like, I guess blacking out's not the right term, but you just kind of get into the flow of it. After the first play, I was like,
blacked out.
like after the first play, you're just kind of like, oh, it's just football. It's what I've always done.
Did that happen in high school? Like that, not that, like not like a blackout, but like I would assume like when you get kind of in a zone or like you're in the game, like you kind of not black out, but you're just like you're not thinking of anything but that. Like, did you get like that in high school?
That was my thing in high school. Like, I was so nervous for the game until there were a few couple plays and you get those pops, and then it's just all football and it's just all natural, and then you're kind of just into it.
Thinking back on high school games, like there's a lot of games where like I played well. I played a lot in high school, where you don't really remember specific instances. You may remember certain plays, but like your adrenaline's so up and you're so focused on doing your job that you can't. For me, anyway, I can't think back like, oh, I remember that second quarter against Pearland Dawson. I was really kicking ass. It's more, you win and then you watch stuff on film and you're like, oh, I was on autopilot. I was just doing my job. I was doing my assignment on that play, but I couldn't tell you, play 23 what I was doing.
So Eddie, do you remember? Like you said, you were on a kickoff and you played in a bowl game.
Yeah.
Is that a very
Yes, sir.
is that a very vivid memory for you? Like, I mean, like it's like just these kind of like two, like, so Trey's talking, he's like talking about, okay, so like, you're playing full games in high school, right? But you got to do these moments in college. And so it's a lot easier to remember 2 moments than it is like 100. So do you remember kind of your moments?
In the Arkansas game, I was sprinting down and I was 44. And the guy that was coming to block me was 44. I remember that. He was huge. And I remember sprinting down and I was thinking, if I'm going to play, like my nightmare was to sprint down the field and like not get the tackle, not touch anybody. And so it's probably the wrong thing, but I literally remember, and you can see on film, as I was like, I'm going to hit somebody as hard as I can. That was my only goal. And so I started sprinting down, and 44 was coming to block me. So I was like, you're the guy. And I sprinted as hard as I could, and I hit 44. We both went down, and then I got up and sprinted after the guy with the ball. And as I got closer to him, one of his blockers like shoved me in the back as I tried to push past him. And I slid on the grass, and the grass was real. So I got up, and after hitting that guy and then getting pushed in the back, I was like covered in grass, and I looked like I just played the whole game. It was awesome.
All Eddie ever wanted.
Do y'all remember like the feeling of like after you got your first play, like there's this huge feeling of relief of like, okay, like it was kind of like all worth it kind of a thing. Like, okay, like there's proof, like, like I was here. Exactly.
Trey, so what position did you play, Logan?
I was a defensive end.
Okay,
among other things.
Well, I mean, but like I guess your position, like when they do it in a little, if they were to like mark it down on a piece of paper, you'd be an end.
Yeah, I was defensive end for my first 4 years, and I played tight end, and I did some deep snapping a little bit.
And then Trey, what position?
I was a linebacker.
Okay, and then Eddie, you were a running back.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was just kind of curious. So, Trey, what did we ask Eddie? I forgot.
You were asking Eddie if it's easier to remember like individual moments.
So do you remember your individual? Do you remember your individual moments in the games, the things you played in? Like,
to your point, it is a lot easier to remember those couple of plays. But what Logan was saying, like you might go 2 or 3 months without running UT's defense, or in Eddie's case, UT's offense, because you're running scout team.
Right.
So, like, on any given week, I wasn't a UT linebacker. I was an Iowa State linebacker. I was a Baylor linebacker. So they put you in the game, and they're making calls that you haven't heard since fall camp, and you're like, oh, shit. So you're out there, and the reason you're scared is because you're like, well, I haven't done this. I don't want to get out there and look like an idiot. But you get that first play in and you're like, okay, this is just football. I've been playing this since I was 9 years old. Like I can do this. But there is that kind of oh shit moment where you're like, I don't necessarily like, this isn't the Rudy moment, but I want to play good and I want to look good and I want to not mess up. And then we can just bring it home and we'll all, see each other on 6th Street.
Me and Logan have talked about, I don't know if we talked about this in the podcast at all, but like, just for the fact that like if you were you didn't travel with the team, right? Like, so, and off, like, I thought about it today. It was like, it's kind of like you're like a parent with a kid, but you are divorced. You know what I mean? And so like when they go out of town, like y'all would just kind of party and hang out, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, because like we knew if we were travel squad, we'd be like, well, we weren't playing, so we were like, well, we might as well have the weekend free. So
Yeah.
it was honestly like after a while, it was a relief to be like, okay, I'm not on travel squad. Cool, like I get a free weekend.
Yeah.
And so it just like it seemed like a way better experience. You know what I mean? In a weird way.
It was pretty great because we would just meet up to watch the
Yeah,
games.
we'd
We'd
hang
watch the
out
games
and we'd
together.
watch the game, and
In one of our, like, you could do stuff like, I remember our bowl game. I was just putting on my jersey on the sidelines. This is at the Valero Bowl, first one. And I went out that morning to drink with everybody. As in my friends that I gave tickets to. So we were out on the boardwalk, and literally the team's like warming up. But I had lost track of time, and we look up at the TV and like, oh, they're warming up, and I was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I started freaking out, and so I took off running, and I ran like a mile and a half to the stadium, sweating in my sweats. I run up to the front, and the guy that's the ticket holder, there's a huge line. My roommate at the time, Dylan Bolton, didn't remember this. I sprint to the front, and the guy was like, hey, you don't have a ticket. And I was like, no. I was like, I'm on the team. I was like, I swear. I'm on the team.
I swear, I remember like trying to convince so many people I was on the team.
I pulled up the roster, and I go, this is me. And he goes, you're either on the team or you're the biggest fan I've ever seen. He's like, you can come in. I was like, awesome. So I got in the stadium, and I ran down to the sidelines, and I was talking to the cop down there. I was like, hey, I'm coming down. He was like, well, let me get a coach to verify. So he ran over and got Tubbs, and Tubbs was like, what's going on?
Rolling his eyes at Eddie.
probably the
in the
best
stands.
person the cop could have asked, honestly.
Oh, for sure.
And anybody can like kind of speak up. What do you value most about the friendship that y'all made kind of doing this? Like what's the greatest part that, you know, we don't have to talk about what happens at the ranch, which like you get to y'all all meet up every year too. Like that, and just talk about that a little bit.
I would think it's really cool. Like these friendships, as opposed to my other friendships, are like playing football at UT. Outside of my marriage and my kids, it's like one of the coolest things that's ever happened in my life. And like these are the guys that I did that with. So I grew in like the coolest moments of my life. Like y'all were the guys that were around. And so that's like a kind of a bond that's different than other friendships. And so when we get to meet up, it's fun to like chat, even though we repeat the same stories. Like when we're at the ranch, we'll be around the fire at night after our activities, and we'll just repeat the same stories and we'll all laugh. And it's fun to have that, like, it's just a bond that in the future you'll never have with anybody else. So we're just like a finite group of guys that have experienced the same things. And I think that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good way of phrasing it, that, you know, we went through something that you'll never really get with anyone else ever again. And from the outside looking in, it's really difficult to explain like what some of that means. But like I could go 6 months without talking to Logan. Not that I would want to. I talk to Logan all the time. But I could go 6 months without talking to Logan, and I know that I could pick up the phone and call him, and he would be on his way down to Friendswood, like without even asking. Same with Eddie. Like if there's a certain group of guys that were on the team that you could ask them, like, you know, hey, could I stay in your house for a little while? You know, I lost my home or whatever, and they wouldn't even ask. They would just say, yeah, like, when will you be here? So it's really cool to have that with a group of guys, and then you get to see everybody growing up, and you know the things you learned about them as you played. Like I know, you know, Eddie was on the team and he was off the team, but Eddie was dedicated, and Eddie could have been hammered drunk from the night before, but he was still going to show up to practice and he was still going to get it done because Eddie just gets shit done. So like, I know that about Eddie. So I know
he's like your uncle getting in and out of prison. You're like, oh, it's back.
In a way.
Back on the block. You know what I mean?
But I know that like Eddie's a dad now, so he's not probably going as hard, but I know Eddie's always going to get things done. And Logan, it was like one of the most impressive academic people that I was ever around, because we'd be, you know, just got the shit kicked out of us on a Tuesday, full pads practice. And Logan was like, yeah, I actually got to go study because I have a huge calculus final. And Logan would go get in the books for like 8-10 hours. So like, I always know that Logan's going to be all right because Logan is just one of the hardest workers that I've ever known. So it's cool to get to see people apply those things in their real lives.
Yeah. For me, like I was thinking about this. I was like, we've like been very vulnerable with each other. We've seen each other like what is a football practice? Like we have seen each other naked. And then I could pick you out of a lineup. But like we have one-on-ones in practice. Like we've seen each other like be put on the spot, have to perform, succeed and fail. We've been in vulnerable spots with each other and like spots of triumph. And like we've experienced that all together and kind of seen that. And I think that's really bonding to just see like, hey, I've seen this guy like be on an island. He had to put himself out there and he tried his fucking best. Or like he had to put himself out there for me and he did it, Yeah. That's kind of what I think that's a real linking bond there.
Eddie, this is really going to put you on the spot, but why do you think people like you so much? I mean, because like, I'm really being a compliment. Like when I first started talking to Logan, he's like, oh my God, like, you were the first person he really talked about. And these guys talk about you in such a endearing way at the same time. Like, you're costing them like 175 up downs. And so there must be something about you that like, that your friends just love about you. And I can ask them, but I was just curious what your thoughts were.
And I don't know. I appreciate that they like me. I think my biggest thing is I was taught growing up that you need to love others as yourself. So that's what I try to do. I don't encompass it perfectly all the time, but I try to always love my friends well. If I feel like a comment at that moment would hurt their feelings, then I won't say it. And if I feel like asking them to lunch would make them feel good, then I'll ask them to lunch. And
why do you like it?
I appreciate you asking that question.
Why do you like him so much, Logan?
No, like Eddie was really welcoming. Like I remember like I was a small town kid. Like I remember like I went to Chipotle for the first time with Eddie. Like I was like, what is Chipotle? And he was like, you don't know what that is? He's like, you're coming with us. And like we went to the Chipotle on the drag and we had that. And like, like Eddie's just very welcoming. Like, like Eddie knows when to turn it on and turn it off as well. Like he knows when to be friendly. He knows when to like push and joke with you. And he also knows when to like kind of be comforting. And that was something I picked up on immediately.
I always just had a lot of respect for Eddie because like even like if he showed up late and pissed you off, like Eddie was gonna wear it, like the story he was telling where he was planning like, all right, how am I gonna fight these 8 dudes? Like Eddie always handled his shit, and like if he had to leave the team, for whatever reason, like you knew Eddie was gonna be back. But I also like I always had a lot of respect for Eddie. One, because like I said, he handled himself and stood up for himself, but also just because he's a really good, really genuine guy. You meet people like that are just bullshitters, and like Eddie can bullshit with the best of them, but he's also just a super, super genuine dude. And that like, if you were in the trenches with Eddie, he'd have your back.
So really quickly, would you say that like he's just very authentic? Like it's exactly what you're getting with him.
Yeah, he's authentic. He's got your back. Like I remember like my first year, we had the Holiday Bowl, and like they closed the dorms before like the Holiday Bowl happened. So I had nowhere to stay. And so I stayed at Eddie's place and I crashed on one, like, because Eddie's roommates were gone. And Eddie, do you remember this at all? A little bit, maybe. Eddie let me crash in his roommate's bed.
Was he aware you were crashing there?
He did know. He saw me come in and out. Okay. So I crashed in his roommate's bed, and I remember like his roommate kind of found out and like kind of got upset about it. And like Eddie came out. He was like, I talked to him. I told him I don't give a shit. He's like, you're staying here, man. You're crashing his bed. And I remember, and I even remember afterwards, I felt bad because I was like, I gave Eddie $100, and I literally like wrote my thank you note on the $100 bill and gave it to him.
See, I told you, he's a really nice guy. Like you felt bad about sleeping in somebody's bed. You know what I mean?
Just a nice dude.
Well, it was a great stay. I mean, I saved so much compared to an Airbnb,
Okay, so we might have talked about this, but like, so I don't want to mess this up, but all of y'all were on the team at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And y'all were all walk-ons at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So and maybe y'all have already talked about it. If you did, maybe we just kind of like we might just go over it like again. This part won't be on. But is there an event that y'all all experienced together that was kind of life-changing for all of y'all? Like, was there some sort of event that y'all all experienced that like maybe y'all came out of it going like, oh, like I felt this way and everybody kind of felt the same way? Can you think of something?
I feel like there are countless, but I'm trying to think of one.
Just any of them. Just if anybody's got anything.
I don't know. Were y'all at like the A&M game?
I was at A&M. That was big.
Yeah, like that was huge. Like because we were at the last game that UT and A&M played, where we won on the Justin Tucker kick on the last second.
Yeah,
Logan's in the video and everything. He was really there.
There is proof. Okay.
That was probably the best game. I was holding Coach Rex's hand and someone else is on my left, and we stormed the field. That was probably the coolest game I've ever.
Yeah,
that was the first time like I've sat there like I've been to those games, or I've been to A&M games before, but like, I remember sitting like on the field and being like, I literally can't hear myself think. Like this is the noise they talk about. So loud, it was insane. And there's you have all the A&M guys doing that thing like right behind you, and everyone's screaming, cursing at you. I mean, it was sick.
It was funny because there was a lot of conversation around it at the time as being like the last one, but you didn't really grasp the significance of that at that time. But talking about it now after the fact, people, they listen to the stories like you were in World War II.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, what was that like being at the last one? So, who knows if that's going to get renewed and if it'll be the same when it does. But being there for that as like a young, because
we were freshmen,
you
and
got to
I.
think, 7 months prior, you're at high school prom, and then now you're on the field, watching history happen. So that was cool.
Well, in a weird way, like that's why you play UT football, is to beat A&M with like a field goal fucking kick and like walk it off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like that's a very Rudy type situation. You know what I mean? Okay, so
I would say with that game, I think I made history. Is I didn't travel with the team, so I drove down the night before and stayed with some friends I had at A&M, and I went to their midnight yell, and I may have been the only current rostered football player that was at that midnight yell.
That may be a first.
did you you went incognito, like you just went in as like a regular person? You weren't.
Yeah, he was like, we do this midnight yell thing. Like, you want to come? And I was like, sure. I don't have to be there till the morning. So showed up.
Eddie always showed up to games very unconventionally. Like he was just flopping out of nowhere.
Okay. So, really quickly. So this might not necessarily, I just want to see if this is true. And then this might not be on the podcast, but I need to know. Okay. Does A&M ever feel like just an ex-girlfriend that won't fucking go away?
Oh,
I always thought of them as kind of like a little brother that's always nagging you.
Yeah, when I'm telling the story, like you talk about, like OU is like a crackhead neighbor that like.
I've never heard that. That's a great.
Like you've been out in the front yard, like with a gun in your hand, and like they have a gun, and you're like, don't you, like, a lot of bad blood there.
Yeah.
Tech is like a shithead brother-in-law, maybe, like you still mad that your sister married him, and then but A&M was always very much like your brother. Like you look at the bonfire, and UT folks were some of the first ones to show up, so there was like a lot of like spirit of competition, but there wasn't a ton of animosity in that rivalry.
But it just feels like they just feel very obsessive with UT. Like it's like they won't let it go. Like I don't know how many A&M fans you talk to, but I know a handful, and it's just kind of like y'all haven't even played in like I don't know how many years. Why are we still talking about this? Like they just won't let it go.
Yeah, but it's also weird because like like my family was split half and half UT A&M, and it seemed like that was like the case for most people. Like if you had like A&M family, like there was a UT section,
especially
too.
if you're from Texas.
Exactly. Yeah. There's always like it's like I don't know. Like I guess there are cases where it's like all A&M, all UT, but for me like there's always like a dividing line in these families.
Yeah.
All right. Really quickly, can I have? Okay. I mean, where's my phone? Oh, my phone's being recorded. Okay. Trey, do you have your phone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Pull your phone out, and I want you to pull up the whole Big 12.
Okay.
Okay.
Like current?
Yeah, the current Big 12.
Okay.
Right. It's still the same, right?
What do you mean compared to when?
To when y'all played, it's the same.
No. Well, it depends on the year.
Because
Missouri was still in our freshman year.
2012.
Oh, okay. But I mean, but it hasn't changed in the last like couple of years, right?
I guess not.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Okay. So Trey, what I need you to do for me is really go through all the nicknames. Like you said, Oklahoma is a crackhead neighbor. So I need you to go through each one and tell me what each one of them is.
Ref, top of the head.
Okay, so we can do this by committee. Sooners.
Crackhead neighbor.
Crackhead neighbor.
Crackhead neighbor. The next one is Baylor.
Dude, there was like people really, like guys on the team really hated Baylor. The fact that Baylor was good, and it was annoying because they'd been bad for so long. So they were like new kids on the block. Like that was the vibe I got.
I did not like Baylor because of what was going on while we were there. There was a lot of shady stuff going on, and
Did y'all find it? Was that
That
when
happened
found
while we
out?
were on the
that
team.
came out. Yeah,
While
when we
you're
were on the team, it made it a very like. Yeah, I don't know. Like that all came out, and then all of a sudden, as a student athlete, people were like, "Whoa!" Like, what's going on here now? What's going on here?
Y'all too as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll
Do you
do that with
remember
that
the
vibe.
coins?
What coins?
So when we were on the team,
the last time at the stadium?
Floyd Casey Stadium, we played in I think the last game ever there.
That's right.
And Baylor beat us, and then they got these commemorative coins that said I think case closed.
Baylor did?
Baylor did, and they mailed them to us
Shut the fuck
at
up.
Texas.
I never knew that.
And Case McCoy was quarterback,
Yeah.
so it was kind of double entendre. But after that, I hate Baylor.
Do you remember whenever we did beat Baylor one year, and then we all got individual little like stuffed bears, and we threw them on this grill / fire on our way to our like practice to like
Sunday.
On Sunday after the
Yeah.
game, you watch film, you do corrections out on the field. On our way to corrections, we threw them on this grill fire, and then we go out and they burn the little stuffed bears as like a symbol of
We
our
all
victory.
definitely got some cancer from
There
that.
was the smoke traveled to the field, and none of us could breathe or see or do anything.
Very
And so we had to
noxious
pause
fumes,
practice
like,
for them to stop
made in
the
China
fire.
with like illegal dyes and chemicals. So we all got a little bit of the cancer from that.
But Baylor feels like one of like an adult in your life that's like really religious. You know what I mean? But they're not like really religious, but they're like, they're always they're always talking that way. But you're like, I just saw you like,
they, like, beat their
gambling,
kids.
like or
Yeah.
or whatever.
I just saw you-
drink.
You're self-righteous uncle.
Yeah, I just saw
Yeah.
you kick a puppy. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
It's that lady across the street that like keeps peeking out her window, and she's like, those kids are up to no good.
Like they're always telling you how to live, but they have some very controversial
Yeah, I don't
views
know.
about
Like,
like a woman's place in the world.
My observation is totally just like making shit up. Y'all actually experience something. So okay, so Oklahoma crackhead neighbor. Would he settle on Baylor for what? Like,
I don't know. Baylor is like your weirdly religious neighbors that homeschool their kids, and
Yes.
you're concerned about like
that's
what's
pretty
going
good.
on.
there you go. Okay, so who's next? Trey?
Next is Oklahoma State.
I have a lot of respect for Oklahoma
I do
State,
too.
actually.
Like,
Yeah, I do too.
They always like there was always some shenanigans that happened when we played Oklahoma State, but it went both ways. Like one year, Joe Bergeron fumbled on the goal line,
They
and they
didn't
said,
coach it.
They said we like spiked it or something like that. And then we lost to them 1 year under Strong on a defensive holding on an interior defensive lineman.
A call that's never been called before, yeah.
So, but I have a lot of respect for Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I really respect them. They're kind of an upstanding citizen to me.
It's kind of like
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been mad at him.
it's like Batman the Joker or what? Like it's like you have like a love-hate relationship. Like
It's like your neighbor down the street and like his yard always looks really good, and you're like, God damn it, Greg's out there mowing again. Like,
But you're like-
I gotta go mow.
It's more like Batman and Catwoman. We're like,
whoa.
you're not enemies, but you're both kind of
we
like
try to have sex,
standoffish.
right? Like,
Who's
We're-
Catwoman?
There's a lot of sexual tension,
A lot
is
of
what I was
sexual
trying to
tension
say.
with Oklahoma State.
All right, what you got next, Trey?
Next is Iowa State. Kind of the same, honestly.
A little bit, but they're out in the country. Like they're not in town. They
Yeah,
have a
no.
farm outside. You see them every once in a while. They're hard nosed.
Just some big old corn-fed country boys. They have like 6 sons, and you can't really tell them apart, but you see them in town periodically. Yeah, basically.
It's like, your cousin who lives out in the country that played 6-man football and was always talking about he was the best on the team.
And he grew up like
That was
picking
great.
up cows and shit. Like he's just a big corn-fed dude. Next is Kansas State, which you could say the same thing. Kansas State is like
I respect them.
they have the same player mentality as like the Patriots. Just like a bunch of grimy, undersized white dudes just out there making it happen.
I feel like all the walk-ons on the team like really loved kind of Kansas State because they were the embodiment of us, but
Yeah.
on like a true D1 football team,
Yeah.
like, we'd be like, oh, they're us, but like they're actually
It
playing.
was like Bizarro World, like if the walk-ons had their own team. But we were there during the Colin Klein. Was that his name?
Yeah.
We were there during the
Optimus
Colin Klein
Klein, yeah.
years. Yeah,
Optimus Klein is
Yeah, that's right.
Bill Snyder, the
Klein.
Purple Wizard. So like they always gave us fits, man.
Yeah, the wizard. Yeah.
Next up is the Kansas State or the Kansas Jayhawks.
You can't lose to Kansas.
You can't lose to Kansas.
Did y'all ever
Can't lose to Kansas.
Did y'all lose to Kansas while you were at school there?
We
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, under Strong.
Our
Right.
senior year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we did.
That was rough.
Y'all
Can't
had, hey,
lose to Kansas.
hey, y'all had the full experience. You know what I mean? Like you were at last A&M game, lost to Kansas. It's like,
Beat OU last
We did beat OU.
senior year.
I mean, that's pretty kind of
Yeah.
awesome. You know, like you know what I mean?
I would say there's nothing sweeter than beating OU.
Oh man, that's
That atmosphere is awesome.
It was better than beating A&M
Hands down.
Yeah, I'd say so.
because
because where
Mm-hmm.
you play and the whole deal.
we were like elder walk-on statesmen at that point. That was 5 years into our football career in college. So we like
We were also having a rough season. Like we
Yeah.
needed that win, and it's just for me and Trey personally, like we got that win. Like that one was huge for us. A&M was like crazy because like historically that was the last time we played.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that one kind of like lives
but
on.
we as new guys on the team didn't have a ton of ownership over that win. That was more like we were
'Cause y'all were
around
freshmen?
for it.
yeah.
But-
we just showed up like a few months ago. you know?
OU in 2015, that was like, hey, that's ours.
All right, who's next?
Next is the TCU Horned Frogs.
Oh, that's the uppity blonde, Dallas blonde.
Oh man,
But the players had kind of took on that attitude.
That was like always my thought on like TCU was just like Dallas blonde,
rich kids, like they had an attitude about it too. Like they would talk. Everybody in the stands, every single person was talking shit to you.
Is TCU a private school?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
No longer particularly Christian either.
After y'all like rolled
Seems-
through. Or
Seems like a bit of a misnomer. No, I think they like
No, their belief
de-affiliated
system now,
or
I
whatever
think,
the
or
word
something.
is.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know about that.
West Virginia Mountaineers.
What do we think about them?
Just a bunch of angry folks come down from the hills. What to raise
It
hell.
was so weird whenever they joined the Big 12 because I was like, wait, West Virginia?
Yeah.
Like they're going to travel and we have to go there? Okay, that's fine.
If West Virginia is almost heaven, I'll just keep on with this life of sin.
Okay,
if it's
but
all the same to you.
I did love West Virginia week because we played the song Take Me Home, Country Roads
Great
throughout the
song.
whole week. And everyone loved I don't
And
care who you
that's-
are.
R.I.P. John
Everyone
Denver.
loves that song. Okay. And we would play it all
Every
week.
time I hear Iowa State, the same
The
thing.
Iowa
but
State
different team every time I
Cyclones
hear
are
Iowa
coming.
State.
Oh, my-
so the week that
The
y'all
Cyclones are coming.
Yeah, like during the week, sometimes we'd have like theme songs or something that like things that would play over the intercom in the weight room, and the locker room throughout the week.
Yeah, so they would either play the other team's fight song, or in the case of Iowa State, they played that storm siren with the guy's voice on it, or like against West Virginia, they played "Take Me Home, Country Road." So it was just some Pavlovian conditioning to get us to just hate that music, so that we didn't want to hear it.
It didn't work with West Virginia because everyone loved that song. The whole like
It was
honestly,
a bop.
it was
Yeah,
just it was
honestly,
a
that's a
bop.
great song.
Iowa State was terrible because like you're like the locker room's a sacred place. It's where you go to sleep before workouts. It's where you try to catch some Z's. You're talking to friends. This thing's playing 24/7. Like you come there at 3 a.m. It's still playing. There's like the sirens. The Iowa State Cyclones are coming. The Iowa State
just
Cyclones are
going.
coming. And so there's just no reprieve.
what did y'all do? What y'all do Kansas? What did they do Kansas week?
I think it was the fight song.
Hey,
I don't know.
Yeah.
they were like, we're not even gonna put anything on because we're gonna beat them.
Until we didn't. Can't lose to Kansas.
When Kansas played, they went ahead and played the next week's team.
So I just want to make a like kind of a quick note. So I was in a fraternity in college, right? And it's just so interesting that y'all's experience is it's so similar to my fraternity experience, like in the things that you talk about. So like you are telling a story about like how they like during the week they would just play that Cyclone thing over and over again. So like, I mean, I don't give a fuck if I'm giving no secrets or something, but like during our like kind of, you know, bonding moments with the fraternity, we'll say, they would just play like Rammstein, fucking like German, and they would just play it.
Du hast.
Yeah, like over and over and over, just in your fucking head. And it was just like, it was just a mental fuck, like constantly. Like somebody asked me, who asked me, they were like, what's the meanest thing? Oh, maybe it was Joe. What's the meanest thing that we ever did to like a pledge? My fraternity was really soft. We didn't hurt. But I just remember like, it wasn't what we did to them. It was how we just try to mentally just fuck their heads. Like, I mean, that was, it wasn't, nothing physical went on. We would just fuck with their heads like hardcore. And it's kind of very similar experience, it sounds like, that y'all had.
Yeah. I mean, we got it from the coaches for sure. Some of them. And then you get to a point where you realize that like you've become the thing you most hate and you find yourself fucking with the new guys and you're like, what have I become?
But it's the same, it's the same thing.
Monster.
It's just like a fraternity.
Yeah.
It's just like,
I didn't find myself like hazing the new guys, but
hey,
like,
but there's always that guy in the fraternity that doesn't do
Hey,
any.
no,
that
guys,
doesn't,
you guys,
yeah,
come
like
on.
the voice of reason.
no,
over there.
like it's not like I just wouldn't acknowledge them just because I knew like a new wave of walk-ons would come in. I'd be like, well, like 5 or 6 year are going to drop out.
Yeah.
So like I was just like I'm not going to acknowledge you or get to know you until you stay for a semester at least.
Yeah.
And then I'll talk to you.
I don't really haze the anonymous author of Walk on Wednesday.
What?
Fair enough.
Oh man.
What-
Oh yeah, Logan, tell us about Walk on Wednesday or the Walk on News.
So I think I started, but before I kind of like took it over was that every week like we'd have like a walk on news and like you would put up like little like blimps of like little kind of like little joke one liners on this whiteboard throughout
Again,
the week.
a lot like my fraternity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I
The
remember
funny part
like
about this one is it would
go ahead, Eddie.
be stuff that's like that you would get in trouble for, so it was like anonymous, but we all knew it was like Logan.
Yeah, we'd hang back and do it after practice, and like it would be a couple of the same guys, and then like if somebody happened to be passing through, they'd be like, "Oh, are you guys doing the Walk on News?" And they would throw one in there, but it would just be like chirping guys, and like we all knew. But then there were some scholarship guys that like it deeply troubled them.
Oh,
like
yeah.
if their names popped up, they'd be like, "Who writes that? I want names. Like I need to know." It would keep them up at night.
It'd be like current event stuff, and you try to make a joke out of it. Like Trey got in a car wreck one week. Like he rear-ended someone.
Yeah.
And so like my thing was Trey Gonzalez. Wait, what was it? Trey Gonzalez rear ends.
It was like rear ends a girl on campus. Also got in a car accident. It's just like stupid shit like that.
Something like that.
So
they were so good that literally people in the locker room would be like excited to like open it up.
It was a weekly thing. Like was it on Wednesdays?
It was on a whiteboard that was behind some doors, so you had to open them up. And one of the scholarship guys would go in there and be like, Guys, there's a new Walk On News update. And so it was like a big deal every week doing the
I hurt my knee
reveal.
one time and tore up a bunch of stuff. And I had to get surgery, but before they would let me go get like a CAT scan or whatever, our trainer was like, well, let's just put tape on it. Literally, let's tape your knee and then see if you're good to go. And obviously I wasn't good to go. So then like the next Walk On News was like, our trainer magically cures torn ACL with tape or whatever. I forgot what you said it in a really witty way.
Yeah, it was
like,
cured with duct tape, and that ruffled some feathers.
The trainer was fucking pissed.
Yeah, I bet he was.
Like to the point that like coaches got involved and they were like, guys, we don't know who's doing this, but it needs to stop. Also, that's funny.
Oh, he came up to me.
Like,
our trainer came up to me and was like, Abushi, this is my livelihood. And he like went off, and I was like,
Stop rapping.
That's great.
Stop
I
rapping
don't
my
ride
knee,
it.
dog.
yeah, you probably should have sent me to the hospital, G.
I mean, come on. Oh man.
yeah.
So, well, y'all can go in any order, but like whoever kind of like Logan, if you go, obviously do both these guys and whatever. But why do you think that you met these guys and they're in your life? What do you think? Why do you think that Eddie, like y'all crossed paths and became such great friends? Why do you think that happened?
I don't necessarily believe there was like a divine path that led me to them, but I think that, I don't know, we were just kind of like in the search of like that was somewhat like a dream of ours. It was like, hey, like UT football is really like an icon in our lives, and like just kind of like we all just went for it, and that's what led us together to meet each other and start this friendship.
Well, it's a lot. It's easier to go through something with somebody else. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
And going through that, like, like some guys would get on the team, like we talked about new guys coming on the team. And like my piece of advice to them was like, hey, if you hang around and like you suffer through this shit with other people, it's impossible for us not to like you. It's impossible for us to like not grow closer. So that was always my advice to the new guys was like, just hang around and like there will be a bond formed. We'll be close. So.
Trey?
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for that because a lot of it, I joke with people all the time. I'll talk to people and they'll find out that I played football in college and, wow, you must have been really good at football. And I'll always say like, no, I'm just a really good trier. I've always been really good at trying. And so I think there's a lot of it to that, to Eddie's point, he kept coming back because it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. So even though it sucks, you come back to it and, we'd go and get the shit kicked out of us every week. And you keep going back. You're not getting your books paid for. You're not on scholarship. You're not getting paid at the time. There's no NIL. So people are like, well, why do you do it? But it's one of the last things that you could truly do on a big stage like that just because you loved it so much. Like there's no other point in my life where I will get to go be in front of 110,000 people doing something that I enjoy, that I grew up doing. Like 101,000 people aren't going to hang out at my house and watch me cook or play video games, so that like for me being a young, football fan, grew up watching UT during the glory years and then, playing football my whole life and getting to go do that. I was living my dream every single day. And even though I wasn't, I didn't get put on scholarship. I didn't have my big Rudy moment where I ran in, and scored a touchdown or something like that. But like for me, it was just very vindicating to like, hey, I did it. And you look around at the guys that did it with you and that you helped get them there and they helped get you there. And it's something that, you can't replicate that. You don't, Greg from accounting is never going to be like, oh, that's my guy. He's got my back. But, Eddie and Logan and other guys that we talk about, they got you through some really trying times where you found a lot about who you were as a person and like who you were going to be as a man one day. So I think it's just a really cool snapshot of a really formative time in life.
It's in this weird way, it's kind of like joining the military. It's like joining a fraternity. It's like as a young man, you just might not have a lot of direction. So like when you're doing it with other people, it feels so much more. And I don't say easy, but just like achievable, I guess. Eddie, why do you think that these two guys? Why do you think that they stayed in your life after all the times you made them do up downs?
That's that one I can't answer, but kind of the previous question, I'm kind of I think a little different than Logan on that. I do believe in divine intervention, but I think in a way that's so cool of like the guys, in my opinion, that like through college, I was with these guys daily for hours. It's like they always say, you're like the 5 people that you're around the most. And I was around walk-ons and other guys like the most, as far as like hours go throughout college. And I think that definitely helped mold me into the man that I became graduating college, that my wife ended up falling in love with. And so now I have a bunch of kids. I just think I think they definitely had a lot of great guys like Trey and Logan that were around me a lot that helped mold me into the man I became today. That luckily now I think that my wife wouldn't have loved me as who I was as a freshman, but as a graduate and going through different stuff with these guys, I think it totally changed the trajectory of my life. And I commit that to divine intervention as my personal beliefs, but they, and I think the cherry on top of that is that I get these lifelong friends that we get to go to the ranch every year, and we get to meet up at football games, and we get to do crazy podcasts, and we get to relive the same stories and laugh about it just as hard as the first time it happened. So I think it's pretty cool. I actually already forgot the question, but I'm really glad that it happened.
Amen, brother.
We've all been hit in the head a lot, so like we forget things. That's why we get to relive it for the first time over and over.
I mean, you know, I think there's, you know, I as a kid, I love sports. I was so bad at sports. It was incredible. I was the kid that was like really, really tall, but like couldn't play basketball or, you know, whatever else. Right. But I think what I took away from sports was a lot of like life lessons and like, you know, like how to like sit on a bench and like just be cool that like you're not going to play like or whatever it was, whatever I had to deal with, like it was good. And so like I'm really excited about encouraging my daughter just to play sports just for the aspect of what y'all have talked about tonight, which is like just interacting with people and communicating and accepting and like all the things that you have to do to be a team, you know what I mean? To be bonded with people. Cause I think it's important. I think we're so disconnected, and what y'all, even on some really dumb level, the guys that are that are walk-ons now, you know, with like technology now in their hand, like really heavy and stuff like that, even though y'all were in the technology, it's only gotten worse. Right. So they might not even having the same kind of experience y'all had. It was probably it's a really special time. Like I said, I mean, like you got to live like every chapter of like UT football. You got to beat A&M by a field goal. You got to lose to Kansas. You know what I mean? But like,
if we got to lose to Kansas so much as that's just something that happened to us.
But you know what I'm saying? Like it's like, you know, it just feels like it's got to feel like a very full experience, I would think. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's, I don't know.
And it's kind of one of those things like, what do you get out of playing UT football? And I'd say, you know, something that Trey talked about was we have a group text called the Brews, which is a bunch of walk-ons group, and pretty much it's like guys like Trey and Logan, people you'll have 14, 15 guys that I know for a fact for the rest of my life I can call on, just like Trey was talking about, and say, hey, I need this, and they're like, okay, I'll be there in 10 minutes. And that's 15 guys that I can count on for the rest of my life that I wouldn't have had if I wouldn't have played football.
Yeah, like people ask me like, what do you miss about football? And I was like, you know what? Like, what I miss is like the Friday morning non-travel squad workouts.
He talked about that on that first podcast.
Oh my God, dude! Like I miss those so hard. We'd play our own music and we're just in there, and you know we're just like we'd get after it for an hour and a half, just knowing that like, hey, after this we can go get some tacos, we can go to Red River Cafe, shoot the shit, and then we're off and we're free for the weekend, you know. And just like those are some of the sweetest moments, man. Just having that bond.
Yeah, it's not often in life that you get a built-in group of like an in group, like you're in, you know, a group and you have people, and so that, you know, the analogy that you use, being in a fraternity, being in the military, you don't get a lot of that in day-to-day life where you're in a situation where there's like an element of like stress or danger or like physical exertion where like you are counting on another person to an extent. And to be able to do that without the stakes of like life and death of the military, but in the context of a sport, is really cool and really unique. And it just creates that relationship and a foundation for, you know, you just, like I said, you know, I could go 6 months without talking to Logan or Eddie, and I know I could pick up the phone and call them, which I do probably, which gets on their nerves, but I'll just call people. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And, you know, it might be a Thursday afternoon with no context, but I know that like, hey, I need to see what Logan's doing, or hey, I'm going to text Eddie, or hey, I saw something that, you know, somebody posted on Instagram or whatever. I'm going to reach out and congratulate him about a birthday or a kid or something like that. So it's a bond that goes a lot deeper than just, hey, we were in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you went through something. I mean, you know, it's kind of cheating, but like, you know, fraternities basically started because of the military. right? So like when guys would come home from war, they would start fraternities and stuff like that. So it's not any, it's very obvious why a fraternity and being in the military is the same. But what I find so interesting is just like everything, and it's these silly little things that you're talking about, where you're talking about like the anonymous news bulletin. I mean, like, so we had this thing called Cheers and Jeers, and so every meeting we had a Crown Royal bag, and people would anonymously write like notes in there and put them in the bag, and at the very end of the meeting we'd read them, and some of them would be like, oh, like such and such, like, you know, that's something really cool, like nice, or like a compliment, or somebody bailed me out of something. And then the next one would be like, such and such went home with some fat bitch on, like, but he didn't want to tell anybody. Like, or like it would be a total call out from like on a Saturday night, something that happened that only like 3 people knew, and they would write it out, and like the rest would be like, oh, well, we got to know what the fuck's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's very similar, and it's just so amazing that, you know, I think what I find so interesting about it is that bonding between humans, and especially between males in that way, is kind of universally the same way, no matter how you kind of shake it out. You know what I mean? And that's that's also lost a little bit, like because of technology and wives and girlfriends and anything else that we want to put priority. But it's really great that y'all, like, again, my fraternity does a ranch thing. Y'all do a ranch thing. You know what I mean? Those things are really great for, like, especially Eddie, like as a parent, I'm sure like the ranch thing is like a good thing for you, right?
Yeah. Count the days. Man, I so good to, this is really fun to, like, we'll occasionally talk or whatever, but like, it's really fun to have a solid 2 hours of like chatting with you guys. Like, I love you guys.
I know, I'm like giddy
this
inside.
Is a really
like
good 2 hours.
It feels like we're around the fire at the ranch. You know what I mean? Just telling old stories, and just like cracking up at how we felt about stuff. And yeah, it's, I don't know. And like I said earlier, like I think there's something too, like we've seen each other at like our lowest and our highest, and like being on an island and like, you know, succeeding and failing. And I think there's just a real bond there. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think beyond even like moments in sport, when you build relationships as deep as we have with each other, like these guys were at my dad's funeral. So like when you talk about, you know, moments in life where you need support, you need your guys, whatever, like I've seen that and seen the lengths, you know, that people in this group will go to help another guy out. So I think, you know, especially talking about relationships as men and as we get older, you know, it seems like we don't always have opportunities to have those relationships as close or as frequently. So I think memories like that, like that's something I'll never forget. You can never substitute with a new friendship. Like, hey, like when, you know, probably the worst day of my life, like those guys showed up and I didn't know they were coming down. So it's little things like that, or, you know, being there when, you know, someone has a kid born, or when someone gets married and getting to celebrate that with them. You know, I think it's really cool. And I think it's important that we as men have those relationships and maintain those relationships and pick up the phone and call each other. And, you know, you check on your guys, because sometimes, you know, that phone call may have been just what they needed. Maybe it was just what you needed, you know, picking up the phone and talking to somebody. So I think having that system and that community created in such a way is really important. And it's something that I'm forever grateful for and forever talking about.
I just think that like I don't know how to say this. Do you feel lucky? Did you feel lucky to have experienced this?
Oh shit, yeah, dude. Like I wasn't gonna walk on. Like I'd finished football in high school, and I told my mom, I was like, you know, I'm gonna go to UT. I'm gonna do engineering. Like I was like, you know, I'm just not that good. Like it's fine. And then my mom and my coach who play at UT, they convinced me, like, at least go try out. I went to the tryout, and like lo and behold, like I suffered through it, and they offered me a spot on the team, and I said I'd be an idiot to turn this down. And then, yeah, I mean, just like, you know, if I was left to my own decisions, like I wouldn't have experienced this. So yeah, I feel really lucky.
Eddie?
I think that's where a lot of people fail. I feel super lucky, extremely blessed. Like I thought a million times how I didn't deserve to be on the team. And that but I got to be on the team, and that driver kept being like, well, I can't lose this opportunity. So I kept coming back, even though I was an idiot a lot. But I think that's one thing that is a good lesson that I think as a driver that keeps us all together that we're similar at is that there is a ton of people on the UT campus that probably could have made the team, but they already had the mindset that they didn't think they could make it, and they didn't even try. So because they didn't try, they didn't make it. But we're three guys who were like, you know what, we're going to try. And because we did, we made it. And I think that's like a similar thing that most all walk-ons have, is kind of pushing against the grain, going against the odds, and making it, which separates from so many other people who could have had the same opportunity but decided not to because they didn't want to take the chance.
Yeah, you just kind of learn to.
So I feel super blessed.
Yeah, just kind of put yourself out there and just see what happens. Like that. That's kind of the lesson I took from it.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think that kind of translates into life, because lucky is a term that I use to describe my college experience all the time, because I was an undersized guy. I was a pretty good high school player. By no means was I a great high school player. But, you know, you get that opportunity and you pursue it. And like we all worked our asses off. But there was an element of luck to it. So I forget the saying, but it's, you know, luck is what happens. I think it's luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
that's exactly
so, like,
the quote.
We, you know, we all got lucky to an extent, but, you know, there's also a degree of making your own luck. So as you get out in the world, you know, you having already done something like that, you know, walked on at the University of Texas, you're like, yeah, you know, I'll apply for that job. I'll call that girl, you know, I'll give this a crack, you know, fuck it. What's the worst thing that could happen? And so, you know, you're lucky, but you make your own luck, at the same time. But I think all of us have those moments where we can point to, and, you know, whether you want to call it luck or divine intervention or whatever the case may be, you know, we all had some help along the way and got us to where we're at now.
The shit.
Okay.
I don't know,
Yeah,
Eddie,
same.
you got to go to bed at some point, or like, does your kid wake up in an hour and a half, or what?
You know, my
What are you gonna do, D-Rod?
3-year-old was at a birthday party, and I could hear that he's back. Might need to put him down.
Next language on the agenda to wake the kids up with is Cantonese in 26 minutes. Just gonna go gently wake them up and start shouting at them.
All right, hey, love you guys. I'm gonna have to bounce.
Okay.
Hey, Eddie, we love Texas and we will earn your trust.
And we will earn your trust.
Love you,
All right,
buddy.
see you guys. Appreciate you.
Man, Eddie's good though, man. I love that guy. He's so, like I said, you just can't help but love him.
And it's funny you asked that question, and it's one of those like
Because I have good reason to hate the man.
Oh,
I'll be
yeah.
honest.
But like I don't know what makes fireworks good. You know what's good about beer. I don't know.